There's some fan bases out there that have a bit of a reputation to them, for good or ill. Like, if somebody says they're a hardcore fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, some people are gonna start making assumptions. Now, is that fair? Not at all. There's obviously tons of people out there who really enjoy Sonic but don't fall into the stereotype people have of the fan base. I'm saying this because I once saw somebody say that Weezer was the Sonic the Hedgehog of music, and by God, I think they might be right. Weezer, like the Blue Blur, has an incredibly well-made, influential start, but there's been some ups and downs over the years, to the point where even hardcore fans will readily admit to not liking at least some of the material they've put out. I've been aware of the band pretty much my entire life, but until recently I had only heard their biggest singles like Hashpipe and Buddy Holly. So, for no real reason other than curiosity, I decided to listen to the band's debut album, which is officially just called Weezer, but has been nicknamed the Blue Album by the fans. You'll find a bunch of people who claim that the Blue Album is the band's best outing, and others who will go so far as to say it's their only truly great record. Needless to say, the album had been built up a lot for me by the time I went to give it a listen. Now let's break it down, but just a quick disclaimer. I'm not a trained musician, okay? I picked up guitar like 6 months ago, and I'm still struggling to play a clean bar chord, so don't expect a deep dive into music theory or anything. What I can talk about is how the songs feel, what they mean, and why they've stuck around, okay? Okay. Weezer first formed in the early 90s, the name being inspired by a, loving nickname frontman Rivers Cuomo had when he was a kid. Wikipedia tells me they had a hard time attracting an audience at first, and I can totally see why. Back in the early 90s, all anybody cared about was Nirvana and grunge music, and your success appealing to young people more or less directly correlated to how much you sounded like Kurt Cobain and the Boys. In the case of Weezer, not only did they not sound like Nirvana, embracing a much poppier and traditionally rock-oriented sound, but they also didn't look like Nirvana. Weezer's whole shtick, even to this day, is their very geeky appearance, which flies in the face of the whatever man counterculture attitude that defined so much of the 90s. But that's exactly what made them stand out back in the day. As grunge started to burn out, Weezer's nerd rock and emotionally candid lyrics hit at the perfect moment. They weren't rebelling against the system so much as confessing what it felt like to be a self-conscious kid in the suburbs, and that perspective became hugely influential on later bands in alternative rock, pop punk, and emo. Let's break it down track by track now. The album kicks off with My Name is Jonas, a nostalgic, almost childlike song, naming a childhood sled in the opening lines. Musically, it balances big, distorted guitars with quieter acoustic passages, giving it this wistful edge. It's not the most famous track here, but it's a strong opener, and a fun fact, apparently Jonas was supposed to be a character Rivers wanted to use in a full-blown rock opera. Yeah, a Weezer rock opera sounds kinda wild, and part of me wishes that project had happened. Track 2 is No One Else, and man, the hook will live rent-free in your head for days. But lyrically, this is where you really get a sense of what makes Weezer tick. Rivers sings about wanting a girlfriend who doesn't laugh at anybody else's jokes, doesn't go out without him, basically doesn't exist outside the relationship. Sure, that's kinda weird, but you're also not supposed to take this track 100% seriously. Weezer's strength has always been in saying the quiet part out loud, the petty, insecure thoughts that most people have but would never admit to. Jealousy, paranoia, the need for control, they're messy emotions, but they're real. People get jealous. It might not be pretty, but it happens. That's why a song like this works. It's not aspirational, it's confessional. Rivers isn't holding up these feelings as great, he's just showing you the raw insecurity underneath the nerdy sweater vest. It's this balance, catchy, upbeat melodies wrapped around awkward, uncomfortable honesty, that makes the Blue Album resonate. Even when it's not relatable in that safe, flattering way, it still feels genuine. And if no one else talks about the breakup, then "The world has turned and left me behind" is the fallout, as our narrator states that he feels like he's just spinning his wheels after a recent breakup, with the lyric "I just made love to your sweet memory 1,000 times in my head," making it pretty clear that he's not getting a lot of action, except for, wrist exercise routines, if you catch my drift. Not much else to say about this song. The chorus isn't the strongest in the record, but I do love the instrumentation, in particular the opening and closing passages, as well as the guitar bridge. Also, fun trivia, the entire album was supposedly downstrummed, which gives it that, chugging, intense energy. But hey, if you think this whole album is just gonna be sad songs, don't worry, because right afterwards we shift gears to probably the most radio-friendly cut in the entire record, Buddy Holly. I feel like this is A, the most easily accessible song in the album from a lyrical standpoint, but also B, the song where the band fully embraces the nerdy aesthetics. The rest of the album obviously has a bit of a tongue-in-cheek vibe to it, but nothing quite as laugh-out-loud funny as "What's with these homies dissing my girl? Why do they got a front?" And, of course, referencing old pop stars from the 50s, which, by the 90s, would probably be seen as aggressively uncool. It's like the band are trying their hardest to appear geeky, and that's precisely what set them apart. The instruments are pretty much equally as memorable as the lyrics, with these neat synths playing during the verses. This isn't like nowadays when we associate synths with dark, moody songs by the likes of Perturbator or Laserhawk. No, this is strictly back in the day where synths were seen as a lame instrument used by posers and sellouts. So again, props for the band's ability to just go for it without much care for whether they looked cool or not. Is it the deepest song in the record? No, but it's super fun. But then we go right back to more emotional songwriting with Undone, the Sweater Song, which I think only has that subtitle so people who didn't know the song's name had an easy time finding it. This is my favorite song in the record, okay, full stop, and the one I feel strikes the perfect balance between power pop and thoughtful lyricism. Let me explain. Undone is, at the same time, a fun song with a catchy chorus and badass guitar riffs, but also an examination of some pretty deep topics. This is a song about a guy who wrestles with a bout of depression and social anxiety in front of everybody at a party that he really didn't want to attend. It's where the central metaphor of the song comes in. He feels exposed, like his cool and collected exterior completely unraveled, and now he's naked in front of everybody, his insecurities plain for everyone to see. It's interesting that so many people think this song is hilarious because it details arguably one of the worst experiences you can have as a young person. Oh, and the song also features a classic music video by none other than Spike Jonze, director of the likes of Being John Malkovich and Her. The mix of extremely memorable, earworm singing and instrumentation with lyrics that detail some heavy psychological stuff to me just embodies Weezer. If you want a song that encapsulates what the band is at their best, I really think the Sweater Song is your best bet, at least off of this first album. Following it up is Surf Wax America, another deep cut and, gun to my head, probably my least favorite song in the record. Does it suck? No, not at all. I don't know, I just don't vibe with it that much. The lyrics are pretty standard. Our narrator doesn't feel like he's a part of the standard office culture of the 90s. You take your car to work, I take my board. It's fine. It's just that, most people my age would probably kill for the kind of cushy office job that people back in the 90s sneered at. Next up is Say It Ain't So, the biggest song in the record going by Spotify, which is interesting because it's arguably the saddest cut. I found this one interview with Rivers where he talks about opening up a refrigerator in his house, seeing it full of beer, and realizing that his stepfather was about to leave his mother, because his biological father had begun drinking heavily right before leaving. If that doesn't make it clear what this song is about, I don't know what will. Maybe it's that exact emotional openness and rawness that propelled the song to the heights of success. That and the extremely catchy chorus, of course, as our narrator realizes what's about to happen, that his stepfather is about to leave him and his mom, and he just desperately looks for confirmation that he's wrong. You know, say it ain't so. I guess in dealing with such a heavy subject matter, a lot of people are naturally gonna retreat into a comfort zone, which leads us right into In the Garage. This one's a love letter to nerdy safe spaces. Rivers sings about his garage like it's the fortress of solitude, dropping references to the X-Men, Kiss, and D&D. It's goofy, but it's also sincere. The way he says garage is funny, but it's also a reminder of Weezer's whole thing. They were making space for geek culture before the concept of geek chic was even a thing. Holiday is pleasant but lightweight, a breezy song about escaping from everything on a vacation. Not the deepest, not the catchiest, but it serves as a palate cleanser before the closer. Speaking of which, the album closer is Only in Dreams, the longest song on the record. The lyrics are about our narrator being obsessed with this girl, but only being able to talk to her in dream scenarios. It's a feeling most nerdy, insecure guys have felt in their lives, to put somebody on so much of a pedestal that you get paralyzed at the thought of actually approaching them. Don't do that, fellas. It's better to just shoot your shot and miss than to build up a girl in your head for too long and have to deal with the anxiety of it all. Trust me, I speak from experience. Musically, though, this track is massive. It builds slowly, layering instruments until it explodes into a soaring guitar solo that carries the album out. Could it be trimmed? Yes, maybe, but it's the perfect grand finale to everything the record has built towards. A great closer to a great album. The Blue Album captured lightning in a bottle. It arrived just as grunge fatigue was starting to set in and gave awkward, insecure kids a soundtrack that felt like theirs. It's funny, it's sad, it's geeky, it's cool in its own uncool way, and even though it's not flawless, it is timeless. The album makes me feel nostalgic for a time that I wasn't even alive for. Like I can picture teenagers in the 90s listening to this between rounds of Mortal Kombat 2 and arguing who's hotter, Psylocke or Rogue. That's the magic. It doesn't just sound good, it captures a whole cultural mood. Is it Weezer's best? A lot of people would say yes. Some argue that the band's sophomore effort, Pinkerton, deserves that crown. I actually listened to Pinkerton shortly after my initial listen of the Blue Album, but I don't think I really absorbed it. If you guys are interested, let me know and I'll give it another proper listen so I can make a full review. Anyway, that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. Join me next time as we kick off our Halloween marathon. That's right. For the entire month of October, we're going to be covering all things horror, from movies, TV shows, video games, and even books. Kicking things off is one of the greatest TV shows of all time, made by one of the greatest artists of all time. Spooktober 2025 kicks off with a review of David Lynch's magnum opus, Twin Peaks. See you there.